Hello everyone. I am mixing it up a little bit here, and I decided I've been doing too much sitting, and so today's going to be a standing version of the in this case an update on Express Entry and what is happening with the program and what all of you guys can expect for the rest of the year. I'll see you in a bit. All right, well, let's wrap that little intro music up and let's dive right back into the question that most people are asking. And it's simply this: with the TR to PR pathway and everything that's been happening, what does the future hold for Express Entry? What does the future hold for the people outside of Canada that are waiting to come in? What does the future hold for the people inside Canada who maybe missed out on Draw 176? That big massive scoop that pulled people out of it with CRS scores as low as 75 points. What does the future hold for people who maybe have applied under the TR to PR pathway but made a mistake? And there are a lot of you that uploaded documents that were missing certain supporting documents, that uploaded the wrong forms, that submitted incomplete applications. What does the future hold for you as it relates to now maybe potential Express Entry options? So those are the things that I'm going to talk about today. And I just wanted to jump on here on this nice sunny Saturday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time and 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific and 9 Atlantic. And I thought this would be a good time to just give everyone a little bit of an update on what the world of Express Entry looks like. TR to PR has dominated the world, and today I'm going to restrict, to some extent, the answers that I'm providing for the TR to PR because there's still a lot that we just don't know. Now, there's been some rumblings, and we've heard a few things that have come out of, the minister's most recent announcements and when questions have been posed to him. But let's face it, everybody, there's still more questions than we have answers at this stage for the TR to PR pathway. So this video right now in this live session is all about Express Entry. So that's going to be the focus. And I know lots of you will have other questions about other areas, and but we'll definitely dive into those. But let's start off with Express Entry. So what have we seen happening? Well, we've seen a consistency with immigration. We've seen that they have been willing and interested in continuing to do the provincial nominee program draw on the Wednesday, and then after, usually on the Thursday, is the Express Entry CEC only draw. Those of you who are Outlanders, who are just waiting, understand until the pandemic, and I've said this repeatedly, until it's gotten under control and the borders start to open up, there's going to be very, very little that's happening in your visa offices where your applications are sitting stalled out. Very little is going to be happening. In fact, I just sat through about an hour and a half of testimony before the Standing Committee on Immigration. No, I wasn't attending in person, but 2 immigration officers were appearing before the Standing Committee to report on the TR to PR pathway and to give an update to the committee on where it was going. Now, I'll be honest, there wasn't a lot of information in that hour plus that I sat listening. But there were a few things that we were able to learn from that. And one of them is who's processing the TR to PR pathway. And I bring this up in the context of Express Entry because it's telling as to where the government sees things are going to happen with what is going on overseas. And the question posed to one of the officers was, who's processing these TR to PR applications? Where are the officers being reassigned? Are they hiring new ones? Where are the applications being processed? Well, the answer was the applications are being processed in Canada through the network of individuals that they have, officers that are spread all across Canada, working out of their homes. And essentially those officers that are a part of that Canadian network are officers that were processing the temporary applications, in particular, visitor visa applications and the like. So the ones overseas that really no visitors are coming to Canada right now, except subject to some exceptions, but those officers are the ones that are processing the TR to PR. So what does that mean for Express Entry? Well, what it means is that if you're an Outlander, it is highly, highly unlikely that until the borders open, until the travel restrictions are changed, that your application is simply not going to continue forward. And that's the one thing that I was able to glean out of that. So if you're an Outlander, understand you're still in the same ugly situation that you were in from the beginning. And I know how sad it is. I know how frustrating it is. I know how you've put your life on hold to be able to come. But right now, if your confirmation of permanent residence was not issued before March 18th, 2020, which, wow, it's hard to believe that it's been over a year that we've been in the midst of this. But if your confirmation of permanent residence was not issued before that day, or maybe it's on or before, I can't remember, it's been so long now, then you are not going to be able to travel, even if you have a valid COPR, at least flying directly to Canada to land and go through that process. Now I'm going to qualify that because that's anyone outside of the US. If you are a US resident, you're living in the US, then in those circumstances, you do, because the orders in council are a little bit different for the United States than they are for everywhere else. So I just wanted to bring that up at the beginning. Okay, so where does that leave express entry? What does the future hold? Well, like I said, we've seen 400, and then we also saw how much uptake there is. Let's flip over here. Let me see if I can share my screen with you. See if we can line this up here. I'm always adjusting these things as we're trying to share and just provide information here. Okay, so these are the rounds of invitations. And if you look at these rounds of invitations and we look back to the most recent one, so we can see it was actually 401. And why was it 401? Well, look at what the number of invitations was. There was 4,147. When it hits a number like that, dead on, like this, often that means that they just took all of the applicants at 401. If it's an even number, then there's a good chance that this tiebreaker is really going to kick in. Now, it's possible that's not the case. It's possible that they just picked some random date, April the 29th of 2021, which you can see this was May 13th. So someone just submitted an application into the pool. But this here, when it's an odd, 401, and then this number isn't even, then that usually means everybody probably that was at 401 was drawn. If we go back and we look at the previous rounds, we can see the pattern. If they had gone with another 6,000 here, I'm positive, obviously, like most of you, this number would have dropped below 400, but they did not, at this stage, have a desire to do so. So we've seen the pattern, and you guys can go back here and you can look. PNP, Canadian Experience Class. PNP, Canadian Experience Class. PNP, Canadian Experience Class. You can see all the way through to currently PNP, Canadian Experience Class, every 2 weeks. Pretty predictable, pretty consistent. Now they can always change, and I'm a little out of sync here with my view here, but they can always change, right? They can always make an adjustment and decide that they're not going to continue with that pattern. But at this stage, I think it's highly likely that that's what we're going to expect for people that are inside Canada. And you can see from this stage, a whole bunch of new people, 4,147, depending upon who declined or whatever, basically all filled in within the last 2 weeks. That's how many new applications. Theoretically, I'm really, I'm taking some liberties here with what I'm saying. But basically what that means is, because the number didn't drop in 2 weeks, that technically everyone below 401 would have, or above 400 would have already received the nomination last time. And so 2 weeks, in, we can see that there's a lot of people scrambling to get their Canadian Experience Class application submitted. Now, there's something that you guys have to pay attention to. And that thing is the nightmare that we're experiencing with language tests. And it was so ironic, when the questions were asked and posed to the officers, well, why do you think there's not as much of an uptake with the TR to PR program for essential workers? Well, I think all of us are all of the same belief that one of the main reasons is language tests and the inability to get them. The officers also said that there were over 100,000 people that had booked exams. So all across the country, all of the tests, and that's not entirely accurate because I know some of you have booked multiple and then are just trying to get the most recent one and haven't yet canceled your previous one. And if you didn't do good on the test, some of you are having that as a backup, right? You write the first one, and if you don't do as good, then you've got another shot at it a couple weeks later, which, it sucks for people who are trying to get in, but it is what it is. And I wasn't going to dive into the whole TR to PR pathway, but let's just flip over here again. And let's just take a look and see where we're at, because this does drive the ship. So you can see we're still at 8,399 here and only 1,200 of the healthcare. So, and it's hard not to talk about the TR to PR without talking about express entry, but there are ripple effects with it. So the more people that pile into the TR to PR, well, feasibly, the less are going to be submitting profiles into the pool and getting ITAs. That's not guaranteed. And some of you, I will give you a little pro tip. If you have any doubt about your TR to PR application, you've submitted documents, you're not sure if immigration is going to allow your application to go forward, then what do? Make sure you've got a profile in, make sure you're expanding all options, and yes, you can use express entry as a backup. You can. And they can both process simultaneously. Eventually, you're going to have to make a decision as to which one is going to be the one that's going forward. But, what are the processing times? Well, right now, they're around 7 months from within Canada. I had a client who just reached out just recently and just let me know one of my collaborative reviews, because you guys monitor it. I don't monitor it when we do our collaborative reviews. You guys have control of your own applications. Well, one of them, it was about 7 months to get their approval from within Canada. So that's kind of what we're looking at for express entry. And I'll tell you, I don't think the TR to PR pathway, except for those students of mine that were in the course, and actually I don't even think I put a link to the course in there, but it is half off right now, and you guys can find it in my previous videos. But that TR to PR pathway, many of those that were the first ones through the gate that took the course that I offered, they're likely going to be first in the queue to have their applications to be started processing. And I'm not sure, I haven't heard anyone yet to say that they've received an acknowledgement of receipt. But so that's going to have a downward pull on express entry. Language tests. If you've got a language test and your scores are lower, well, understand if they continue to do CEC only draws, now we're going to start to see the effects of that. People who don't have their language tests are not going to be entering into the express entry pool, nor applying through any of the essential worker programs or streams through the TR to PR pathway. So, pro tip as well, I don't care who you are, whether you're an international grad or otherwise, if you're even in school right now and you think you may have an intention or a desire to apply for permanent residence in the future, book your test now. It's valid for 2 years. Make sure that you have it. And I think we've all learned that, and I'm not telling you guys anything new or unusual, but that's something you need to take into consideration, is that we know where the bottlenecks are, right? We know where they are. So now make sure that you're taking care of those. Even if you haven't or are not yet eligible, get your police certificates. Those will not expire if you never go back to those countries. So get those. What other things can we do? Well, medicals I would hold off on, because medicals are only valid for a year. And if you don't know you're going to be applying this year, then it doesn't make sense to try to book a medical. But once again, we know the nightmare that we're experiencing trying to get all of these documents, including medicals. So what does the future hold for express entry? I've talked about Outlanders. You guys are just going to be status quo, at least till the fall. I don't think anything's going to change until the fall, until we see what's happening. Canadians are getting vaccinated. Efforts are being made to curb the spread of the virus, but it's still here. It's still alive and well. Alberta's still in lockdown. Things are not great here. Ontario's not a lot better. And so until this is under control, we're not going to see a lot of movement. You guys that are inside Canada, if you're in the pool waiting, your scores are lower than 400, I think you're still going to get a shot. I really do, because language tests are the bottleneck, and there isn't going to be a whole bunch of new people coming in and applying who don't already have a language test. So if you're sitting there, hang in there. Hang in there. All right. On Monday, 2 days from now at 5 p.m., my course is open again, my Express Entry Masterclass, and all of the course materials, everything is available. And I'm doing another Express Entry Masterclass that starts on Monday to help you guys that have got your ITAs, but even those of you who don't. Register for the course, because you can start preparing and knowing what you need to do now to prepare for the future. You have access for life to all of the materials, all of the videos that we do within the course and all the questions that you have. They're all going to be contained in that private Facebook group for life, all of the recordings. All right. And like I said before, the TR to PR pathway course is still open and active, and Holthe Immigration Law is fully representing people now. So within the collaborative review model that we have, if you are a TR to PR candidate, book a consult. We can now represent you with your application and help you and assist you and guide you, because you guys are the ones that are really driving the ship with the program. But because there isn't this crazy race, we can now assist you. So that's kind of a high level, you guys, of where things are at. I expect that the draws are going to continue in the same fashion with CEC only and the PNP. It's possible they could throw in a federal skilled trade, but that's the world we're in. Now, I want to show you one thing just to wrap up kind of this little bit of a teaching session here, and then I'll get into answering questions. We're not going to go for the full hour today because I want to get outside and go for a walk with my family and Simba. I've been working all day today, but I want to show you something. I'm going to flip my screen around here and get myself back into place here. Okay, so this is one of the most recent announcements about the budget 2021 in support of Canada's economic recovery. Repeatedly, immigration has said how important it is for Canada to retain and transition foreign workers in critical occupations to permanent resident status in Canada. Occupations where we are definitely suffering labor shortages, where foreign nationals and foreign workers are filling up the ranks of those workers, where they're critical to our economic recovery. Some of you, and I'm going to flip back here, some of you may be wondering, well, why is food service supervisors, food counter attendants, why are they not on the list? Why are they not essential service? They're out they're out facing the community. Well, it's a pretty simple answer, because the labor data, the unemployment rates are extremely high in those occupations for Canadians. And when you have a lot of Canadians that are laid off in those occupations, that's why they are not on the list of essential service. And it all comes down to some careful evaluation of the unemployment rates in those occupations. And even though they may be front facing, they may be on the front lines, they may be in that category of essential workers, the reality is there are lots of Canadians that typically fill those positions that have been laid off or otherwise because of the pandemic. So in many cases, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but that's a big one that you guys need to understand if you're asking why my not code is not on that list. Okay, back to express entry. This is the one that I haven't talked about at all before, but I want to start getting you guys ready for this. Because this, like I said, this video is all about, this live is all about express entry. When you go down here, this message right here, and you can just Google it if you want to, Minister Mendicino highlights immigration investments in budget 2021 in support of Canada's economic recovery. And if you scroll down here, and this was just released only 3 days ago, okay, if you scroll down, he talks about the rationale, talks about the importance of what the government's doing, why they're injecting all these millions of dollars into here. And it's all designed because it's important to Canada's economic recovery and growth. And so as you scroll down here, you can see here that there's promising improvements that will deliver a modern immigration processing platform. That means that they're going to create a new GCMS essentially that works. They've got programs to support racialized newcomer women. They're going to enhance the temporary foreign worker program. And one of the ways they're going to do that is kind of interesting, because they're going to help to provide more funding for settlement organizations to help workers get settled and really optimize their stay here in Canada. Accelerate pathways to permanent residence. That's the one that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about. Streamline express entry and enhance capacity and service centers within the client support. So that's when you're trying to call and get help and guidance. They're pumping money into that so that you can actually get assistance and be able to speak to someone. So when you go down here and you look at it, you can see the millions of dollars that they're attributing to each one of these things. So the new system, $428 million over 5 years to develop a new platform for basically taking all of the paper-based applications and making them digital into a much more efficient system. Just about $50 million over 3 years is to support, you can see, organizations who provide migrant workers, that's the foreign workers, orientation services and arrival settlement services. There's $60 million over 3 years that are all designed basically to increase employer compliance, to go after employers who are exploiting foreign workers, and to make sure those that are doing it right have got all of the records in the way they should. And then here you can see 6.3 towards vulnerable workers, 15 million over 2 years for racialized newcomer women, that pilot they've launched, and then 74 million over 3 years to basically client support. So that's like the call center. You can see where people are waiting forever and are not getting emails answered and your inquiries. So it's all about client support. But here is what I wanted you guys to see, and I want you to pay close attention to this, okay? Right here it says, furthermore, we do not know right now what this means. We don't know what this means, okay? And so if you look at this right now, you can see the government of Canada intends to propose amendments, okay? So these are changes. Okay, just give me 1 second here. I had a big sneeze building there. These are amendments that they're proposing to the Immigration Act to better tap candidates that meet Canada's labor market needs from among the pool of candidates who wish to become permanent residents through express entry. What does this mean? What this means, you guys, is that there's a possibility that the government is going to start to look towards occupational specific streams within express entry, where potentially people who are working or who have work experience, we don't know whether it's going to be entirely in Canada or outside Canada, could potentially get bonus points, just like the French speakers get them, just like those with the job offer. But there's a potential for people to have, for basically express entry to have occupations in demand. And, you know, we've had that in the past, and I haven't really been a big fan of it. But for people who have lower CRS scores, who are maybe not getting an ITA right now because their human capital is too low, if immigration does choose, and they can very easily do it, they can very easily say anyone who is a construction supervisor, you know, we're going to give you an extra 50 points towards your CRS score if you have work experience in this particular knock code. So that's one of the potential things that they could do. And so those of you who are wondering, what does the future hold? I missed draw 176. I don't have my language test. So I have a little bit over 400 points, but I don't have my language test. And so I can't apply through express entry. Or you essential workers who are not, well, your knock code isn't considered the essential worker to get into the pool of candidates for the TR to PR application. So so those are just some things to think about. And I, you know, as I'm pondering over this, as I'm watching and paying attention to what the government's doing, and I guess that's one thing I want you guys to realize is that, yes, I'm the national chair of the Canadian Bar Association. I'm an immigration lawyer, but I watch, I read, I pay attention to what the minister says. And another thing, I know it's kind of outside of express entry, it's the TR to PR stuff. Many people have asked, will they open it up? Well, I can tell you, the ministers of parliament who were listening to the evidence provided by the immigration officers routinely were asking those same questions. If for whatever reason November 5th comes and all of the essential worker spots have not been filled, then would you consider opening it up to more international graduates? And they're contemplating. Recently, the minister himself, although he did not say anything outright or make any promises, you know, confirmed that there was something that they were looking into, right? And even the officers themselves are looking into it. But initially, the TR to PR pathway is a one-time thing based on humanitarian and compassionate considerations, and that's how we have to treat it until we know differently. All right, let's see. So that was a quick overview, and I know lots of people are going to be asking TR to PR questions. What do I do? I have deficiencies. Until we get acknowledgements of receipt, it's hard to know exactly what to do. Can you go ahead and submit a web form knowing there's no category for TR to PR? At least last I checked. Maybe they've got it there now. Maybe you guys are starting to get your acknowledgements of receipt. I haven't received any reports yet. I've been kind of with my head down, taking care of a bunch of administrative things in my office. But until we get those acknowledgements of receipt, until we get a file number, until we can see in the drop-down list in the IRCC web form, it is really, really going to be questionable whether uploading supporting documents and correcting your file now through the web form is the way to go. Remember, the TR to PR pathway is not it's not linked to GCMS, which is really where that web form is connected to. So, all right. Let's jump in here, and I'm going to start. I know a number of you have been posting questions, but I just jumped to the bottom, so you can start posting your questions now, and I will start to I'll start to answer those. And remember, I want to see a Q in front of it, and then I know that that is a question, not just you guys talking amongst yourselves. Okay, so if you have a Q, the letter Q in front of it, then I'll know that's a question, and we'll spend probably about 15-20 minutes here answering your questions. Okay, all right. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, so here's the first cue. Suraj says, my AOR CEC is May 13th. Will I be behind the TR to PR pathway? Suraj, I don't think so. Because like I said, the officers that are processing TR to PR have been largely reassigned, redeployed from the ranks of officers who were processing visitor visas, the temporary resident visas. So theoretically, those officers are now going to be processing the TR to PR pathway. I'm sure there's going to be overlap, but it's not meant to compromise the express entry process because they need all of them to be landed. So the temporary stuff, because of the border restrictions, those temporary applications are not going anywhere. So those officers have been reassigned to assist in the processing of the TR to PR pathway. All right. So I don't think so, Suraj. Like I said, right now we're looking at about 7 months for in Canada. Okay, here we go. Hasino says, hey Mark, so my dad has applied to asylum when I was 12 years old in the US. Would that affect me when I apply to the student visa for Canada? It's very unlikely, Hasino, that would be the case. As a dependent, you didn't have any choice over what your family was doing. And although an officer can look at anything and they take everything into consideration, it wouldn't be the same as if you had made that claim yourself. Okay? And at the end of the day, Hasino, you want to study in Canada, you're going to submit the application. You're going to load it up with everything that you can to show that not only are you coming to study in Canada, but that after those studies are completed, you intend to use that education to enhance your employment opportunities back in your home country. That's what they're looking at. All right. Okay. All right. This is a good question. Now, you didn't put a Q in here, but I'm going to pull it up, Sovik. So Sovik says, any chance for CEC with 393 CRS? Sovik, I think there's actually a good chance of that. Because if the language test, if you have one and you're in the pool already, and the language tests have dried up because everybody's trying to get them for TR to PR pathway, and they do another draw in 2 weeks, and that next draw is also around, anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000, I think there's a good chance that it could drop down. It's entirely possible, Sovik. So don't lose hope, my friend. Let's see, another cue here. Okay, do you think PNP Outland applications will be processed normally? Nope, Yash. Those PNP Outland applications, let me put it this way. When you're filing your application and you're going through the various PNP programs, when you submit those applications, there's an element of it that just has to be finalized at this stage in those overseas offices. So the electronic processing or even the paper-based, because they're digitizing everything. They're trying to get all of the paper-based applications digitized and put in the system so that they can be processed all throughout the global network of officers. And when it comes to PNPs, they're still, you said PNP Outland, so that I don't know if that's express entry or what it is, but regardless, if it has to be finalized outside of Canada, that's where the bottleneck's going to happen. Until the borders open, until visa offices are open and operating at a full capacity, it's very, very unlikely that that you're going to see any kind of normal processing. Good question. Thanks, Yash. Okay, Mariana says, okay, thank you, Mariana. Is it possible to get points for secured employment, offer of employment for CEC, or is that only for FSW? Does the job always need an LMIA or jobs while in a postgrad work permit count? Mariana, the job offer applies equally to any of the programs, any of the express entry programs. But what is a job offer? It is an LMIA supported permanent residence. So a permanent LMIA that just supports PR, an LMIA that supports the issuance of a work permit, or you're working on an LMIA based work permit, or you have an employer specific work permit through one of the other programs under the International Mobility Program. So postgrad work permits, no, you will never get those points for an open postgrad work permit, no matter how much the employer loves you and wants to support you. And that's just a legal definition of what an offer of employment is. Okay, Karthik says he applied to the TR to PR pathway with an unofficial transcript as I graduated on May 11th and just got my letter of completion. Is it going to be okay? I don't know, Karthik. I don't know, but I can promise you guys that the moment I hear, the moment we see anything, I will let you know. Okay, Jody says, do you think they'll review and send AOR for essential workers before the cap is filled? Yeah, I think the moment they start to process applications, no, they're not going to wait until the cap is filled. The reason we know that is because the ticker happens based on submission, and by assigning it to that level, that just by its very nature means that they're going to start to process these applications as soon as they can. They're not going to wait until the end, because the whole goal is to get these applications as many as possible. And the projections, at least that the officer said, were about 35 to 40,000 applicants they're hoping to get processed this year. So if you've got your application in and you're going through one of the essential worker programs, then no, absolutely, you will get an acknowledgement of receipt. Absolutely. Good question, Ahmed. I'm thinking by the end of the year, there's going to be 35 to 40,000 of them that are processed. So you guys can do the math. So hopefully, around 6 months is what they're shooting for. But some of you that were the first through the gate are likely going to see decisions a lot faster. Roger, is it okay to apply under 2 different TR to PR programs? Yeah, you can apply under the International Graduate Stream and another one. So once again, another little pro tip for you guys to listen to, and however you want to get notified when I tell you guys that you've got a pro tip. This is like legal advice. This one is like, great question. I don't think I have one really that's designed for, hey, here's something good. Maybe this. So that's a great question, and the answer is, for individuals who are under the International Graduate Stream, who've submitted your application and you think there are problems with it, if you qualify under one of the essential ones, then absolutely submit an application through there. Now, there's no guarantee you're getting that 1,050 processing fees back. That may be the cost of doing that you don't get that fee back. But it's likely that at least the right of landing fee would be returned if you chose not to finalize the application and to withdraw it. But if you have any questions, then yeah, you're going to submit through both. You're not going to lose that opportunity because you rushed through and did the best that you could, because they forced everybody to rush, right? And I'm projecting that there's probably going to be about 30% incomplete applications, but we don't know how they're going to treat them. We don't know if they're just going to be ruthless like they are with express entry and refuse them, right? So in your case, Roger, yes, absolutely. If you can qualify, there's no restrictions whatsoever on submitting multiple ones. Okay. George, what do you got here for me, my friend? He says, okay, cool question. Oh, a cool question. All right. If we call IRCC and we learn from them that our CEC application eligibility phase is done, it becomes not useful to apply under TR to PR to optimize our chance, correct? George, there's always uncertainty until you actually get your permanent residence approved. Now, having met the eligibility and they say everything's correct, and then yeah, that's a pretty significant factor. And it's very, the likelihood of it getting refused at the end stage is low. Without a doubt, it's low. But there's always a possibility, always. And until you have your permanent residence in hand, there's no guarantee 100% that you're going to get it. So you have to govern yourself accordingly, George. Good question. Okay, Ali says, hey, I did not upload my national ID for TR because there was no upload box for it. Will this be an issue? No, they didn't ask for it. They didn't ask for it, Ali. Okay, Kishan, this is awesome. Kishan's got the most Qs that I've seen. I'm just going down sequentially. One Q will do it. One Q will do it. He says, can we leave Canada after we applied in the TR to PR International Grad Stream? Kishan, I could have sworn that you asked that question already, my friend. And the reality is you have an obligation to be present in valid status, residing in Canada at the time in which you submit your application and at the time in which your application is approved. Okay. Now we're not talking about what you're doing with your job because you showed that you were employed at the time in which you filed, and that's the obligation. You don't have to show that you're necessarily working or employed at the time in which your application is approved. But residing in Canada is one of those things. Can you leave for a period of time and then come back? Well, I'm sure people can go on a vacation or a holiday or whatever, go back and see their family for a couple of weeks and then come back to Canada. But can you come back to Canada? Are you going to get trapped? Is there going to be some airline that refuses to board you wrongly? Is there a new change in the orders in council? Does the minister and the other the cabinet decide we're no longer going to allow airlines or flights from India or Pakistan to come to Canada? And then something happens and your employer says, well, I don't have a job for you anymore. And then you're no longer meeting the non-optional, non-discretionary standard because you're the holder of an open work permit without a job. And then guess what the border officers say? They say, well, if you don't have a job, then this is a non-essential entry and, well, non-optional. This is an optional or discretionary entry, and we're not going to let you in. So I never, ever, Kishan, would advise anyone to leave the country at this stage. You may have very good reasons for doing it. And I recommend, I'm going to click on the bell here and tell you to book a consult below so we can look at the whole situation. But I would never at this stage advise anyone to leave the country while their TR to PR pathway is being processed. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Siddharth says, is there any way we can check out application status? Nope, none. Not at this stage, my friend, not until we get the acknowledgement of receipt. Okay. All right, Laura says, will the French International Grad Stream be open even if I get the TEF result in September? Thanks. Yeah. Yes, Laura, because the International Grad Stream for French speakers has no cap. So if you're waiting until September to get your result, you have until November the 5th, you're going to be just fine, Laura. So if you write your test and it's scheduled then and you do well enough and you meet that minimum threshold, then, and it's going through the French program, then there are no caps. So you're going to be just fine. Now, do you guys want to try to learn French in 5 months? I think that will be a stretch, but hey, if you've got some French, I guess I could probably take a crash course at it. I do have my high school French. You dabble a little bit in it, but my goodness, wow, you'd have to devote your life to it for 5 months intensive to try to get up to the level. Although it's not super high, you still have to be able to read, write, right? And that can be challenging. Tonu, no updates on AOR. How many people, raise your hand, give me a thumbs up, give me some reaction, have heard the rumors that the AORs are going to start to come on March the 15th? How many have heard that? I've heard that. Has it been from government? No. Has it been from someone else and rumors floating around? Yes, but I have never once said that, and because I've never heard it directly from the source. Remember, once again, I am secondary source, okay? The government is primary source. Even when I speak to the government, I can say, I heard from the primary source, but unless the primary source, which is the government, actually says, yes, on this day, you're going to start to see AORs, till I see it, I won't believe it. All right. Yep. And that's the reality. So Zeynep, if you're outside of the country, this is one of the challenges like we've talked about before. Processing is not going to go anywhere until the borders till the borders are opened up, my friend. Drew says, what if an ROE has no occupation? Well, it's kind of an open-ended question. I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Ultimately, if you can connect it to the employer where you're working and you've got a letter and other things, then it's probably not the end of the world. And remember, put a Q in front of your question, because if there's no Q in front of your question, then I'm going to skip past it. Okay, so Samir says, do you think they will exclude Knox? Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. If you're asking whether express entry will exclude Knox, I guess it's possible that they could go to a stage where they say only these knock codes are going to be accepted into the pool. That's possible, Samir. But I get the sense that they're more anxious in trying to increase the number of people that are eligible, not decrease, right? With the lofty levels plans that they have. You know, we've talked about this a lot, right? You know, we've talked about the almost 200,000 economic immigrants through express entry in the PNPs that they're trying to get just this year, and they're not going to hit it. It's going to be really, really hard for them to hit that level. And so I don't think that they're going to be looking for ways to exclude people. I think you're going to see more opportunities, more programs that are more inclusive of more people. All right, let's see here. Dishesh, seriously, my friend, you're asking that question. You just wanted me to pull your question onto the board, didn't you? Yes, you did. Of course, if you've got a CRS score of 563, you just wanted me to pull yours on there, didn't you? Overall 7 IELTS without any 8 bands and with CRS 563. Personally, I'd like to see how you have your 563. Maybe you've got a job offer, maybe you have other things, maybe that's a typo, but maybe that was intended to be 363. But a CLB 9, which is a 7 in everything and an 8 in listening on the IELTS, that's really the minimum to maximize your score unless you've got that Canadian experience that can compensate for it. Yeah, Hamza, yes, a lot of the other programs that are paper-based have really suffered, and the processing times have always been long for H&C applications, always. But remember, TR to PR is electronic, and no, their goal is to get these people landed for the economic recovery of Canada. Okay, I've answered this one. Yeah, you can apply under both. Yeah, we've talked about that. Unfortunately, Outlanders are just going to be, you guys are going to be stuck. Lots of acknowledgements of receipts. Okay, Nikhil, this is your U.S. resident. So if the confirmation of permanent residence is issued, the orders in council are the thing that drives the ship. If you're planning on coming and you have your confirmation of permanent residence issued, then you can travel as long as you are confirming and being able to show to the officer that you're not doing a soft landing and just turning around and going back, but that you're actually intending to settle in Canada and come and land. Then if you get your confirmation of permanent residence issued, then the orders in council are not barring you from coming. All right. So Field Marshal here says, how to do a French language test. Well, I think what you do, my friend, is find a French language testing center, book the appointment, then go and take the test, and there you have it. Some of you have the links for Field Marshal here. Please feel free to post those. Okay, we've got lots of other questions that I've already answered. Okay, I've answered this one before, but we'll do it again, Vishnu. Can we change quit the job after submitting completed application for CEC? It's pretty simple. Do you have a job offer associated with it? Where the employer that issued you that job offer, if you're on an LMIA based work permit or one that is employer specific, if you have a job offer and that employer is giving you extra 50 points, then that in those circumstances, you don't have the flexibility. But if you are not tied down to an employer and you want to change jobs or switch, well, everything's locked in at the ITA stage. And so there's no issues at all with you moving as long as your work permit authorizes you to do that. And Kita, yes, it will be an issue. That much I know for sure, because they repeatedly said, validate your 008, validate the IMM8, validate it. And so, Kita, absolutely, I can affirm that that will be an issue for you. Okay, we'll answer a couple more questions, and somehow you guys sucked me into a whole hour here again. But I am feeling a little bit better than I was feeling last Wednesday. I was not feeling very good. I was feeling very frustrated and somewhat disheartened and somewhat, well, just, yeah, sad, because I never ever want to, I never ever want anyone to feel like things that I'm saying are untrue or well, I don't want to ever be in a situation where I'm saying anything that's not correct or not true. That's hands down. I never want to be in that situation. But some of you like to take the things that I say and then use it. And there's nothing that I heard worse than someone taking the comments that I made in that other situation and then exploiting them for their own economic gain. I have no respect for people like that. So anyone that you hear about who's doing this, please don't trust them, don't believe them, and don't give them your service. Don't give them your business, because if someone is going to do that, then they don't deserve your support. And the same thing goes for me. If I'm disparaging someone and the comments that I'm making are not true, then I would hope you would treat me with the same disdain that you would anyone else who's doing that. Now, if someone does something and they make a mistake, then I am just like anyone else hoping that you will forgive me when I make a mistake. In like manner, if someone else makes a mistake, there's this world of just crucifying people the moment they say anything that is offside and then twisting it and holding it up to them forever. Like, that's one thing I hate about social media. But if mistakes are made, and they absolutely will happen, if someone is going to make amends, even the individuals or whatever, the agents that were using my stuff to advance their cause, if they pull stuff down, they apologize too, then, hey, then I'm totally open with them, being entitled to the same forgiveness that I might be. All right, let's move on. This is a great question right here. Actually, I already answered that one. Yeah, we've got that one. You guys are asking questions that I've already answered. I can see, and it may just be that these are duplicating on my end. Okay, we'll go just a couple more minutes. We'll wrap it up at the hour. What happened? Is it over? It's like sleeping through New Year's Eve, right? It's like sleeping through New Year's Eve. Go back and watch it. You didn't miss anything. You can watch it all as a recording. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, and Neha, we answered this one already. As a student, can you apply for essential worker? Yeah, if while you were studying, unlike express entry, you can count that work experience that you obtained while you're on your study permit. So as long as you meet that 1,560 hours 1 year in the previous 3 years, then you're okay. All right, I think we're gonna end off there. Oh, okay, I'll finish off with George. He's old. George he's my ardent supporter, and so I'll finish with you, George. So he says, if TRV officers are processing TR to PR, then it will be much faster than CEC because those officers are not really busy now. No, George, because the volumes that are going through express entry are the same. Remember, all these officers that are temporary resident visa officers, how many permanent resident applications have they submitted? Have they adjudicated? None, like hardly any. Some of them might have some experience. So there's going to be a learning curve. It's going to take them far more time to process one of these TR to PR pathway applications than it ever will the CEC, because the CEC is a known commodity. The officers know exactly what to look for. They know exactly what the policy is and how they treat each level of the documents. But with TR to PR, R10 doesn't apply. They aren't just going to be returning applications because they're missing something. Ultimately, they're going to be processing them and refusing them. And when there's so many questions that we have with deficient applications, George, well, I personally think the TR to PR pathway is going to be a lot longer as they sort through what are we going to do if this application is missing this and this and this. And if they then have to request, a request for more information, and they send those deficiency letters to clients, then those people then have to submit them, and there's a delay and it holds everything up in backlogs. That's why Express Entry was created the way it is. So George, in this case, my friend, I'm still banking on Express Entry to be faster than TR to PR, unless you've got a complete application and you're one of the first ones in the queue. And that's pretty much it. All right. So there you go, guys. Another live that was kind of spontaneous, although I was able to do a little bit of a recording. Remember, if you're going through Express Entry, my TR to PR pathway course is awesome. It is so helpful to get people up to speed. I re-recorded a lot of those videos and it's there. But I want to shift over here and I want to show you right here the Express Entry step-by-step course, which is May 17th. It's launching. Literally, I started on Monday. Is your opportunity to jump in. And the numbers are not high in the course this week. So the numbers that I have that have booked for the Express Entry, most of them are all piling into the TR to PR pathway. So there's going to be a small intimate group. Excuse me. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. We may even do Zoom calls if the numbers sustain it. So if you want to get in now and get some real close, intensive support, and remember, everything in this course, everything that you, when you register for it, everything is available for life. So if you don't have your ITA yet or you're just thinking about it, all of this materials, all the lessons, all the videos, everything are yours for life, no matter when you're ready to do Express Entry. So click on the link below and register. And I hope to see you guys in that course on Monday. And those of you who are going through the TR to PR, if you're an international grad that has submitted it and know you've made mistakes and now want to make sure you're doing it right, register because it's 50% off. And if you're eligible for the essential, one of the essential programs, this is a perfect fit for you. Also, there's that consult that you can book below as well. So head on down there and book a consult. One of the lawyers within my firm, even myself, will be able to help you. All right. And let me flip back here. I'm always sliding around this. I'm standing up now. I'm trying to get a little bit more standing because of all the sitting that I've been doing. And so sometimes my overlays don't line up very well here, but whatever. This isn't about looking pretty. This is all about providing substance. So thank you so much, you guys. It was an absolute pleasure being back. I'm feeling more like my old self again. Thank you for all of your support. And yeah, and I wish you guys all the best as you navigate this crazy world that we call Canadian immigration. Take care.